Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take massive amounts of information, distill it down to its most crucial and fascinating nuggets, and make sure you walk away truly informed.
Today, we aren't talking about a trendy new fintech startup, nor are we focusing on a centuries-old commercial bank. We're diving into an entity that is a successful fusion of both, an institution that has, fundamentally shaped global commerce, travel, and even personal status for over 175 years. American Express.
Okay, let's unpack this. When most people hear Amex, they immediately think of, platinum card, airport lounges, maybe that distinctive green card design.
Right.
But the sheer scale of this institution is staggering, making it far more than just a card company. We are talking about a Dow Jones component with total reported assets clocking in at, US $271.5 billion as of 2024.
Yeah, this isn't just big, it's a financial citadel.
Exactly.
And the numbers, they really speak to its immense reach. As of the end of 2023, there were 141.2 million Amex cards in force worldwide. And collectively, those cards handled a colossal purchase volume of over $1.7 trillion that year. While Amex is sometimes overshadowed by its larger rivals, it's still the fourth largest card network globally by purchase volume.
So it's sitting right behind giants like China UnionPay, Visa, and MasterCard.
That's right.
So our mission today is to figure out how this institution achieved this level of dominance and, built this financial citadel. We're going to trace the journey of American Express from its surprising origins as a freight forwarder in Buffalo, New York.
Which is a story in itself.
Right. Through a necessary forced reinvention during the chaos of World War I. Then we'll examine the high-stakes corporate maneuvers, the huge legal battles over fees and market share, and the deliberate strategic brand choices that gave its cards that distinct, sort of untouchable premium image.
And the foundation for this deep dive is a comprehensive institutional history and financial profile, which gives us all these granular details of its numerous corporate transformations. It's really a study in corporate survival.
A history of radical reinvention.
Exactly, and that's really central to Amex's longevity in the world of finance and travel.
Reinvention isn't just a buzzword here, is it? It's a matter of survival. The history of Amex is genuinely an exciting journey of transformation. It's not just a timeline of financial acquisitions, but a story of how they literally invented new tools of trust and payment.
Tools that reshaped how people travel and transact business globally.
It's incredible.
It is. We are looking at a company that successfully navigated the extinction of its initial core business freight delivery and then pivoted repeatedly by mastering brand loyalty, leveraging celebrity endorsements, and, most importantly, managing a proprietary network model that gives them unique control over the entire transaction.
Let's start at the very beginning, 1850. This is the ultimate moment in corporate history. When Amex was founded in Buffalo, New York on March 18, 1850, it wasn't founded as a bank or a credit institution.
No, not at all. It was an express company.
An express company, so like packages.
Essentially, yeah. It was a joint stock corporation dedicated to freight forwarding, specializing in the high-value movement of cash in transit, securities, and precious goods. The creation itself was a significant corporate event involving the merger of three existing competing cash-in-transit companies.
And those founders have quite the pedigree of names that still echo in American financial history.
Absolutely. The three companies that merged were Henry Wells's Wells & Company, William G. Fargo's Livingston Fargo & Company, and John Warren Butterfield's Wells, Butterfield & Company. They pooled their resources, routes, and expertise to form a dominant force in northern transportation.
And that brings up the most fascinating historical footnote, the connection to Wells Fargo. It sounds like they just split off the American Express business, but why?
It's a direct split, and it really illustrates the geographical ambitions of the different founders. Wells and Fargo, two of the Amex founders, went on to start Wells Fargo & Co. just 2 years later in 1852.
2 years, wow.
And the reason was geographical resistance from within the newly merged American Express.
Geographical resistance to what, exactly?
Well, Wells and Fargo proposed extending American Express's express operations all the way to California.
To cash in on the gold rush.
Exactly, to capitalize on the gold rush and the rapid expansion of the West. But Butterfield and other Amex directors objected. They saw it as too risky, too far from their established New York State network.
So they couldn't sway the board?
Nope. So Wells and Fargo just went westward on their own.
So Amex decided to stay focused on the East, at least for a while. And what do they focus on? Logistics monopolies.
And they were spectacularly successful at it. In those early decades, American Express quickly developed what the sources describe as a near-virtual monopoly on the movement of express shipments.
So everything. Goods, legal securities, and crucially, physical currency.
All of it, throughout the entire state of New York. This dominance was built on reliability and trust, which was, a requirement for transporting large sums of money.
You can almost track the company's ambition just by following its physical headquarters in Manhattan. This was a company whose business relied on horses, wagons, and railways, so its first locations really reflect that logistical need.
That's right. Their initial headquarters were at the intersection of J Street and Hudson Street, which is now part of Tribeca.
Okay.
And this location was vital because the building had a busy freight depot on the ground floor with a spur line that ran directly to the Hudson River Railroad. This made it super easy to transfer goods and cash from the train lines to their city delivery system.
But as Amex started dealing more in securities and financial transfers rather than just, boxes, they recognized they needed to move closer to the burgeoning financial heart of the city.
Precisely. In 1874, Amex moved its headquarters downtown to 65 Broadway. By 1903, they purchased the entire site, solidifying their presence in the budding financial district.
And this move coincided with their rising financial stature, right?
Yeah.
It did. By that time, their assets were some $28 million, a figure second only to the National City Bank of New York among financial institutions in the city. They were positioning themselves as a financial player, not just a logistics firm.
And the ultimate physical statement of their power, signaling their transformation from a freight company to a financial power broker, that came in the years leading up to World War I.
Under the new president, George Chadbourne Taylor, they decided to tear down the older buildings and erect a massive, imposing new headquarters. And despite massive construction delays caused by the war, the 21-story neoclassical American Express Co. building was completed in 1916-17 at 65 Broadway.
That building became a defining structure in what was known as Express Row on Lower Broadway. The source notes that this continuous masonry wall have transformed Broadway into the canyon of office towers that still define that area today.
And Amex kept that building until 1975, but their presence there absolutely defined a section of the financial district for decades. It linked their brand identity to solidity and permanence.
And this physical dominance mirrored their strategic expansion into financial services, which they were doing even while still operating the express business. It was a slow, careful pivot.
The very first step into pure finance was the money order business in 1857. This was a direct shot at the U.S. Post Office.
So they were willing to take on government entities to secure market share.
Oh, absolutely. That move proved they understood the business of transmitting value reliably, not just physical goods, but the real aha moment, the invention that cemented their global trustworthy reputation, was the creation of the traveler's check.
And this invention literally redefined international travel finance.
It did.
And the story behind it is pure corporate legend. It involves J.C. Fargo, who was president for over 30 years. He took a pivotal trip to Europe around, the late 1880s, and had an experience that sounds incredibly frustrating.
It was more than frustrating. It was infuriating, especially for a powerful businessman. Even as the head of American Express, he was carrying traditional letters of credit.
Issued by his own company.
Right, and other major banks. And he found that when he went outside the major capitals, Paris, London, Berlin, it was nearly impossible to get cash easily. Local bankers were suspicious, or they demanded complex, time-consuming verification.
So he comes back to New York, completely annoyed by the backwardness of it all.
He came back with a mission: create a piece of paper that could be instantly recognized, instantly verifiable, and instantly cashable anywhere in the world, backed by the name American Express.
So he commissioned one of his employees, Marcellus Fleming Berry, to devise a better solution.
And Berry delivered the American Express traveler's check, launching it in 1891.
And it worked because it solved the security problem, right?
Exactly. The check required the purchaser to sign it twice, once when you bought it and again when you cashed it in front of the clerk. This simple two-signature system eliminated the risk of fraud that plagued currency and letters of credit. It was basically a portable, universally accepted form of private branded money.
And the ultimate stress test for this new instrument came in 1914 at the start of World War I.
The war didn't just test the check, it solidified Amex's reputation for global reliability. When the war broke out, many European financial institutions just stopped honoring traditional letters of credit.
They were worried about a systemic collapse.
Right. So you had all these stranded American tourists and businessmen. Amex was one of the few companies in Europe that continued to honor the letters of credit and cash the travelers' checks.
That's a massive public relations and trust victory that money couldn't buy, and their operational involvement in the war went even further.
The British government recognized Amex's incredible logistical and financial network. They appointed American Express as their official agent for managing relief. Amex was tasked with delivering letters, money, and relief parcels to British prisoners of war.
That's incredible. A freight company turned financial company is now handling humanitarian logistics for a major power.
It was operational chaos, managed with military precision. By the end of the war, Amex employees were delivering 150 tons of parcels per day to prisoners held across 6 different countries. This level of operational reliability, combined with the humanitarian aspect, built an incredibly powerful brand foundation. It connected the Amex name directly to stability, international reach, and solving complex problems for people in distress. They banked on trust.
So Amex is flying high in the early 20th century, having successfully pivoted into financial instruments that dominate global travel. But at the same time, their original core business freight forwarding via railroads was drawing highly unwelcome attention from Washington.
It had achieved too much success. President Theodore Roosevelt's administration, specifically from 1901 to 1909, tasked the Interstate Commerce Commission, the ICC, with investigating American Express for monopolizing the railroad express business.
A classic antitrust challenge of the progressive era.
Exactly.
You can imagine the corporate lawyers getting ready for a long battle. But the resolution to this monopoly didn't come from a direct ruling. It came from a massive, completely unrelated national crisis.
World War I. It was a forced strategic intervention. The source calls it a dramatic coincidence. The U.S. entered the war, and during the severe coal shortage in the winter of 1917, President Wilson's administration decided it needed total control over infrastructure.
So the government effectively commandeered all U.S. railroads
to manage troop, supply, and coal movement. And to do that efficiently, the government decided that all the competing express companies were just too inefficient.
So they needed to consolidate.
The Treasury Secretary, William Gibbs McAdoo, was given that task. And this single governmental action designed for the war effort was the end of American Express's original core business. All individual contracts were nullified.
So McAdoo forced them all to consolidate into a single entity.
A single, unified, quasi-governmental entity, the American Railway Express Agency, in July 1918.
That must have been a devastating blow, even with compensation. They were forced to give up their entire infrastructure.
They gave up the largest share of equipment and property to this new entity, 40% of the pooled assets. This single wartime act fundamentally ended Amex's freight forwarding routes overnight.
But the good news for them, I guess, was that this transition conveniently removed them from the ICC's regulatory crosshairs.
Exactly. They were forced out of one business and instantly released from its accompanying regulatory scrutiny. A truly forced pivot.
But the company wasn't left adrift. They had already been subtly building their next life raft, leveraging that traveler's check infrastructure and reputation.
That's right. In 1915, they had wisely established the travel division, which quickly led to the opening of their first travel agency. The systems they perfected for assisting global travelers were now formalized into a dedicated business line.
They were transitioning from moving packages to moving people.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, let's jump forward a few decades past the Depression and WWII. The 1950s brought about the next massive permanent reinvention, the modern payment card. Amex executives had been discussing the concept of a travel charge card as early as 1946.
But discussions aren't market launches. What truly spurred them into action was the competitive threat posed by the launch of Diners Club in March 1950. Diners Club proved that a charge card concept, initially for restaurants and travel, was viable.
So Amex, which hates being second, had to move quickly and decisively.
They did. By the time they entered the business in late 1957, preparing for their official launch on October 1st, 1958, the pent-up public interest was astonishing. They had already issued 250,000 cards before the official launch.
So they instantly secured a significant market presence.
Instantly.
What's truly fascinating to me is how they immediately established their premium positioning through strategic pricing.
Oh, that's textbook brand building. The annual fee for the new American Express card was set at $6.
Okay.
And crucially, this was $1 higher than the annual fee charged by Diners Club. This small price difference wasn't accidental, it was intentional.
Just to position it as a premium product from day one.
Exactly. They were selling status, not just convenience.
And they also innovated quickly on the technology side to maintain that premium image.
The very first cards issued in 1958 were actually paper, with the account number and name typed on them.
Just paper? That seems so flimsy.
It was. And just 1 year later, in 1959, American Express made a physical change that revolutionized the entire industry. They became the first company to issue embossed plastic cards. That plastic innovation became the physical standard for the entire global payment industry.
And the card ecosystem continued to grow and diversify in the 1960s, allowing them to segment their new affluent market.
Right. In 1966, Amex introduced the gold card specifically for what they termed big spending members. This created the first recognizable tier in their product structure and further cemented the idea that not all Amex members were the same.
An emphasis on the affluent market that has remained central to their strategy ever since.
Right. And then the one we all recognize, the classic green card, followed a few years later.
Introduced in 1969, but it was still a charge card, requiring the balance to be paid in full monthly.
That's right. The 1970s saw the card division solidify its foundation, which really set the stage for the highly ambitious, volatile, and ultimately transformative era of acquisitions under a new CEO.
Here's where the story gets really complex. Amex moves from payments and travel into the highly aggressive and, frankly, cutthroat world of Wall Street investment banking. And the driving force was James D. Robinson III, who became CEO in 1977.
And under his leadership, Amex decided it wanted to be more than just a charge card company. It aimed to become a sprawling financial services holding company, a one-stop financial supermarket.
This decision launched them into a massive, decade-long investment banking foray that proved to be wildly volatile. The initial and most significant move was in 1981 when Amex purchased Sanford the Stodel, Wells Shearson Loeb Rhodes.
Wiles' firm was already a beast in its own right, the second largest securities firm in the U.S. at the time.
But the fit felt strange, didn't it? A staid, premium travel company merging with a high-octane brokerage house.
It was a huge culture clash. Shearson was already a complicated entity, the result of a flurry of aggressive mergers in the 70s. When Amex bought it, the new Shearson American Express had capital of $250 million, placing it right behind Merrill Lynch.
So the ambition was palpable. Connect the Amex cardholder, base wealthy, high-spending, with Shearson's brokers and financial products.
That was the idea, and the expansion continued rapidly. In 1984, they acquired the legendary investment bank Lehman Brothers. They incorporated Lehman into the Shearson family, creating Shearson Lehman American Express.
They also acquired Investors Diversified Services, or IDS, that same year.
Right, bringing a huge network of financial advisors and investment products under the Amex umbrella. This was an all-in bet on becoming a diversified financial behemoth.
And it climaxed in 1988 with the acquisition of E.F. Hutton & Co., creating Shearson Lehman Hutton, Inc. This was the pinnacle, the absolute largest expression of their brokerage experiment.
But these experiments rarely succeed when the corporate cultures are so disparate, and this one failed spectacularly. The brokerage business proved challenging for Amex for several key reasons. Management difficulty, huge trading losses, and the fundamental volatility of the investment world just contracted so sharply with the steady, predictable, high-margin revenue of the card business. Robinson III realized the strategic mismatch was too great.
So the exit process began in 1993.
That's right. Amex negotiated the sale of Shearson's retail brokerage business to Primerica, which then merged it with Smith Barney to create Smith Barney Shearson. But even after that sale, Amex was left with the institutional investment banking arm,
which they finally spun off as Lehman Brothers.
Yes. In June 1994, American Express completed the spin-off of the remaining institutional and investment banking businesses as the independent firm Lehman Brothers. This marked the definitive end of Amex's 13-year, highly ambitious, and ultimately costly experiment with the higher-risk brokerage business.
And that allowed them to finally focus back on their core strength, payments and trust.
Yes, but while they were navigating Wall Street, Amex was simultaneously dealing with one of the worst external ethical crises in its history, the Safra scandal.
This is a remarkable cautionary tale about corporate warfare. Amex had acquired the Trade Development Bank of Geneva from the famed international financier Edmond Safra in 1983.
Right, the goal was to expand international private banking services for ultra-wealthy clients.
Safra even joined the Amex board, but the arrangement didn't last. He left and opened a competing private bank.
And that's when the relationship soured dramatically. Amex, threatened by the competition, launched what can only be described as a full-scale international smear campaign.
What did they do?
They provided deliberate, highly inaccurate reports to media outlets suggesting Safra was under investigation by the FBI for heinous crimes, drug trafficking, connection to the mafia, even involvement in the Iran-Contra affair.
All of which were complete fabrications. This corporate espionage tactic, designed to destroy a competitor's reputation, backfired spectacularly when the truth emerged.
It was a massive public humiliation. Amex's public relations chief resigned. In July 1989, American Express had to issue a very public, very painful apology to Edmund Safra, stating that all accusations were false.
And as restitution, they donated $8 million to a charity of his choice.
It remains a classic example of corporate overreach and the damage caused when competition turns malicious and unchecked.
Yet, despite this public humiliation and the chaos of the brokerage business, this era also saw the company double down on the very thing that made it powerful: premium status and exclusivity.
That's the strategic bedrock. In 1984, they launched the Platinum Card. It was marketed as ultra-exclusive, carried a substantial $250 annual fee, and was strictly invitation only.
So you couldn't just apply for it?
No. To even be considered, customers needed at least 2 years of tenure, significant spending habits, and an excellent payment history. They were actively curating membership, not selling a commodity.
They also expanded their product structure to compete directly with revolving credit products, which had become ubiquitous.
In 1987, Amex introduced the Optima Card. This is a critical distinction in Amex history. The Optima Card was their first true credit card product. Before this, all their cards were charge cards.
Let's pause and clarify that for the listener, because that difference is central to Amex's entire business model. What is the functional difference between a charge card and a credit card?
In simple terms, a charge card legally requires the card member to pay the balance in full every single month. If you spend $5,000, you must pay $5,000 when the bill arrives. This virtually eliminates credit risk for Amex.
Because they aren't carrying debt.
Exactly. A credit card, however, allows the customer to carry a revolving balance over multiple months, paying interest on the unpaid amount.
So when Amex introduced Optima, they were finally entering the world of consumer lending, where they could earn money on interest, not just transaction fees.
Precisely. It showed they recognized the massive market potential of revolving credit, but they kept it separate from their core charge card business, maintaining the high-status image of the latter.
And then, capitalizing on all this built-up status, the ultimate status symbol emerged in 1999, the legendary Black Card.
The Centurion Card. And what's remarkable is that Amex actually created the card in direct response to an urban legend.
An urban legend, really?
Yeah. Rumors had circulated throughout the 1980s that the company secretly produced an ultra-exclusive black card for an elite, hidden customer base who could supposedly purchase anything with it.
So Amex essentially manufactured the legend.
They capitalized on it perfectly. They launched the Centurion Card as a high-fee, invitation-only product, initially available only to select high-spending Platinum Card users. It cemented their position as the aspirational brand for the ultra-affluent segment.
But while they were building this powerful, exclusive image, they were simultaneously frustrating the life out of the merchants who accepted their cards due to one major issue: fees.
The fees.
And this frustration boiled over into a very colorful incident, the Boston Fee Party in 1991.
This was a pivotal moment. Amex was known for charging significantly higher interchange fees, the percentage they take from a merchant on every transaction. Sources suggest Amex was often charging around 4% per transaction.
And how did that compare to Visa and MasterCard at the time?
Visa and MasterCard were charging merchants significantly less, often in the range of 1.2% to 1.5%.
So Amex was demanding nearly 3 times the rate.
Right. And adding insult to injury, Amex often cut those fees only if the merchant agreed to accept Amex exclusively.
That sounds like an untenable position for a business operating on thin margins like a restaurant.
It was. So a group of Boston restaurateurs, tired of subsidizing Amex's expensive network, staged a high-profile, highly effective protest. They stopped accepting Amex cards altogether.
And they displayed signs encouraging customers to use Visa or MasterCard instead.
Exactly. And the revolt spread quickly. The movement spread to over 250 restaurants nationwide: New York, Chicago, Los Angeles. This wasn't just a local issue, it was a national PR crisis.
The resistance forced a major strategic reassessment from the top.
Kenneth Chenault, then head of travel-related services and future CEO, had to respond quickly. He was forced to cut fees to bring these crucial merchants back into the network. This incident marked a pivot in strategy. Amex shifted its focus away from mandatory exclusivity and focused on broadening acceptance.
So adding mainstream merchants like Walmart to the network.
Right. The exclusivity practice, aside from a few high-end strategic holdouts like Neiman Marcus, was largely ended around 1991. This forced transition paved the way for the 21st century's focus on regulatory battles and massive digital expansion.
As we enter the 21st century, Amex faces a paradox, defending its premium, high-fee business model in court while simultaneously fighting to break into new markets that had previously been barred to them by their rivals.
The first major obstacle was a decades-long antitrust blockade. For years, the operating rules of Visa and MasterCard explicitly barred U.S. banks from issuing American Express cards.
So if you were a major bank like Bank of America or Chase, you could only issue Visa or MasterCard.
Precisely. This significantly limited Amex's ability to grow market share because they had to bear the financial risk and capital outlay for every single card they issued themselves.
But the U.S. Department of Justice antitrust litigation finally struck down those anti-competitive rules in 2004.
A colossal win for Amex. It opened up entirely new avenues of growth and risk mitigation.
The immediate consequence was a flurry of third-party issuing deals.
Immediately, Amex struck key deals with third-party issuers, starting notably with MBNA in 2004. This partnership led to co-branded products like the Bank of America Rewards American Express card in 2006.
Which was strategically brilliant. It allowed Amex to expand its card base dramatically without having to use its own capital to finance every single cardholder loan.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Amex continued to systematically shed the complex conglomerate elements they had acquired during the ill-fated 80s expansion. They were cleaning house.
Right, focusing back on payments and travel.
In 2005, they spun off their financial advisors unit as Ameriprise Financial and sold the tax and business services unit. They also sold their international banking subsidiary to Standard Chartered Bank in 2008. These divestments focused the company back on its core competencies.
Then came the 2008 financial crisis, which forced another massive institutional shift regarding their regulatory status.
This is a critical point that goes beyond just receiving a bailout. On November 10, 2008, in the depths of the financial meltdown, Amex received Federal Reserve approval to convert to a bank holding company.
Why was that conversion so crucial strategically?
Before 2008, Amex was essentially an industrial loan company and a network processor, not fully regulated as a primary bank. Converting to a bank holding company was a dramatic, permanent shift. It made them eligible for government assistance under TARP, which they needed for survival.
But more importantly, it placed them directly under the supervision of the Federal Reserve.
So they were trading independence for stability?
That's a good way to see it.
They took $3.39 billion in TARP funds, which they repaid completely by July 2009. But the conversion itself was the real story. It ensured survival and stability by placing them within the Fed's regulatory protective structure.
They survived the systemic crisis, but were quickly hit by a market disruption that truly showcased Amex's vulnerability to reliance on single, massive retail partnerships.
Yeah.
The Costco breakup.
Oh, the Costco partnership. That was a relic of the old exclusivity era, dating back to 1999, and the U.S. Costco was Amex's last major U.S. merchant that accepted Amex cards exclusively.
And this wasn't just a partner, it was a cornerstone of Amex's entire domestic volume. Just how big was this piece of business?
It represented a staggering 8% of American Express's entire billed business globally. That translated to $80 billion in purchase volume annually.
$80 billion. Wow.
And furthermore, the partnership accounted for approximately 20% of Amex's entire interest-bearing credit portfolio. So when that contract came up for renewal, the negotiations broke down.
And the breakup was swift.
2 stages. Canada switched to Capital One and MasterCard in 2015, and the U.S. followed in 2016, switching to a new partnership with Citigroup and Visa. The financial consequences for Amex were immediate and painful.
How painful?
In the very first quarter, without the Costco accounts, Amex's profit dropped a dramatic 10%, and revenue dropped 5%. They were forced to sell all the existing card accounts and balances to Citigroup.
So it served as a sharp reminder that relying on one major exclusive retailer was too fragile a strategy.
It was. They shifted even further toward direct customer relationships.
And even as they recovered, Amex has continually faced regulatory scrutiny regarding its sales and operational practices.
The fines and settlements are consistent. In October 2012, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, required 3 Amex subsidiaries to refund an estimated $85 million to 250,000 customers.
For what?
The core allegations involved illegal practices like misleading consumers about sign-up bonuses, charging unlawful late fees, and even age discrimination against card applicants.
And recently, these issues have centered on their small business practices.
Yes. In 2023, Amex agreed to pay $15 million to the U.S. Treasury to settle an investigation. And in January 2025, they agreed to pay about $230 million to settle probes by the DOJ into alleged deceptive practices when selling products to small business customers.
It highlights that the regulatory challenges are a permanent fixture of their operations.
Absolutely.
So on one hand, they're paying massive fines. On the other hand, in 2018, they scored a massive market-defining legal victory that upholds the very structure of their business.
We're talking about the Ohio v. American Express Co. Supreme Court case in 2018. This was arguably the most important legal victory for their business model in the modern era because it affirmed Amex's ability to enforce what are called anti-steering provisions.
Anti-steering provisions. Okay, hold on. That sounds like jargon. For you, the listener, what does that victory mean in practical terms?
Right, good question. It's absolutely critical. Amex operates a two-sided market. Cardholders on one side, merchants on the other. Anti-steering means that Amex can legally block a merchant, say a local store, from encouraging you to use a different card, like Visa or MasterCard, even if the fee is lower for the merchant.
So the merchant can't say, hey, if you use your Visa, I'll give you a 2% discount because it saves me money.
Correct. The Supreme Court upheld Amex's argument that protecting the cardholder experience, ensuring seamless acceptance and rewards, justified the anti-steering clauses. This ruling is fundamental to maintaining their premium fee structure.
Because it prevents merchants from undermining the Amex network to save on fees.
It effectively protects Amex's right to charge more.
And their strategy now, knowing they can legally maintain that high fee model, is to double down on lifestyle and business services to justify that premium. We see this in their recent, highly targeted acquisition spree.
Their current strategy is focused on creating a proprietary ecosystem of tangible perks and tools. They acquired LoungeBuddy in 2019 to enhance airport lounge access. They also bought Kabbage in 2020, an SMB lender.
What do they do with Kabbage?
They leveraged Kabbage's technology and platform, rebranding it in 2023 as American Express Business Blueprint. This gave Amex integrated products like Kabbage checking and automated tech-driven credit lines from $1,000 to $150,000.
So they're positioning themselves not just as a payment option for small businesses, but as a full-service banking partner.
That's the goal. And their most recent moves have reinforced their focus on high-end dining and entertainment.
Resy acquisition.
Absolutely. They acquired Resy, a restaurant reservation platform, and in June 2024, they acquired TikTok, another major restaurant reservation platform. By buying these, Amex is directly inserting itself into the high-end dining and travel experience.
So if you use a Centurion Lounge, you book a flight through Amex Travel, and you book your dinner through Resy or TikTok, you are locked into the Amex ecosystem.
Completely. And this massive investment in ecosystem justifies the rapidly rising cost of membership. The Platinum card fee hike announced for September 2025 is astounding.
It jumped from $695 to $895. That is a massive hike.
It reflects a confidence that only Amex seems to possess in the face of competition.
So what does a customer get for nearly $900 a year that justifies that cost?
Well, they offset it with new luxury perks and a complex web of statement credits for targeted spending. Lululemon, Aura Ring, Resy restaurants, increased credits for luxury hotel stays, and new streaming subscriptions, including Paramount plus YouTube Premium and YouTube TV.
So they're essentially selling access to a high-end, curated lifestyle bundle.
Designed to ensure that their affluent members feel that the value proposition, even at $895, is still positive.
It's a bold strategy, especially considering that their network acceptance is still a global challenge. While they're accepted at 99% of U.S. merchants, Amex is still less accepted in Europe and Asia compared to Visa and MasterCard.
Precisely. They have to sell lifestyle to compensate for less geographical utility. They have embraced the fact that their appeal is focused on the high-spending consumer for whom the perks and status outweigh the occasional acceptance issue abroad.
Even with all the financial and regulatory maneuvering, the American Express brand remains one of the strongest and most recognizable in the world. And that starts with its intentional design identity.
The branding is incredibly deliberate, aimed at evoking classical antiquity, strength, and stability, connecting to those early days of trust and reliability. The logo features a gladiator or centurion figure.
And this imagery is reinforced by the highest tier card, the centurion card, which literally means a Roman army officer.
Right. And there's a visual nod to stability in the cards themselves. I always notice how the classic card designs, especially the original green card, bear a striking resemblance to United States Federal Reserve notes.
The engraving and border patterns?
Exactly. It reinforces the sense of financial permanence and official government trust, even though Amex is a private company.
That visual confidence is essential. But the brand's power was equally forged through some of the most iconic advertising campaigns in marketing history.
You have to start with the unforgettable line, "Don't leave home without Femet."
Developed by the legendary David Ogilvy in 1975, this campaign was a stroke of genius. It was initially for the traveler's checks and famously featured the actor Karl Malden for 25 years.
He was the public face of global security and reliability. He reinforced the message that if you traveled, you needed Amex.
As the card grew in importance, they transitioned seamlessly into the Do You Know Me campaign. This was brilliant celebrity marketing.
So brilliant. A celebrity would give hints about their identity, but their name would only be revealed when imprinted on the Amex card itself, right before the famous influencer told you how to apply.
That campaign perfectly leveraged exclusivity and celebrity association, making the card seem like the marker of a successful life.
Later, we saw more integrated celebrity usage, like the late 90s webisodes, The Adventures of Seinfeld and Superman, which was a massive early experiment in digital marketing.
Then the next phase was the My Life, My Card brand campaign, launched in late 2004, and later the Are You a Card Member campaign in 2007.
These campaigns featured a massive array of high-profile celebrities, encompassing actors like Robert De Niro, Tina Fey, Kate Winslet, athletes like Tiger Woods, and respected film directors like Martin Scorsese and Wes Anderson.
So it firmly established the card not just as a financial tool, but as an exclusive marker of achievement and individual success.
I remember the 2007 black and white ad titled Animals, starring Ellen DeGeneres. It was so effective it won the Emmy Award for Outstanding Commercial. They truly understand how to use mass media to reinforce the aspirational nature of the product.
It makes you want to be part of that exclusive club.
And here is a fun, specific detail that ties back to the advertising. The sample name printed on many Amex ads, especially those vintage campaigns, is C.F. Frost.
I've always wondered about that.
That was not a fabricated name. Charles F. Frost was a real, highly respected advertising executive at Ogilvy and Mather, the agency behind many of these iconic campaigns.
That's a great detail, a subtle nod to their advertising powerhouse.
Exactly.
Beyond celebrity and design, Amex was also a pioneer in linking commerce with social good. They were one of the earliest and most successful corporate users of cause marketing.
The defining example is the 1983 Statue of Liberty campaign. Amex announced that for every purchase made with an American Express card, they would contribute 1 penny toward the massive Statue of Liberty renovation project.
The result was huge for the charity. It raised $1.7 million for the restoration. But for Amex, the impact was even more transformative on their business practices.
That's the critical part. The promotion generated an approximately 28% increase in American Express card usage by consumers. This taught Amex and many other corporations a crucial lesson about the commercial power of linking routine purchases to a recognized positive national cause.
It was profitable philanthropy.
That's it.
And this commitment to brand and strategy is supported by a significant global footprint, even if card acceptance remains challenging in certain areas.
Their main operational headquarters have evolved from 65 Broadway to the 51-story American Express Tower at 200 Vesey Street in Lower Manhattan, where they moved in 1986. They had to temporarily vacate and rehabilitate the building after the 9/11 attacks, as it was located directly opposite the World Trade Center.
A symbol of their resilience.
For sure. And their operations are now truly decentralized across the globe. They maintain huge operational centers. Their European Service Center in Brighton, UK is massive, and they have official EMEA headquarters in London.
And for Asia Pacific.
Their HQs are in Singapore and Sydney. But perhaps most tellingly, the source suggests that the Gurgaon campus in India is arguably the single largest employee location by headcount.
Which highlights the sheer scale of their global back office, data analysis, and customer service operations.
Which have to run 247 to support a $1.7 trillion Purchase William.
So we see a company that is geographically diverse for operations, but remains intensely centralized and proprietary in its brand promise, high-fee network strategy, and ultimate control over the customer experience.
That's the perfect summary.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? We've traced American Express from a Buffalo freight forwarder facing antitrust scrutiny to a Dow Jones financial giant. The story is one of a company that successfully navigated the utter collapse of its original core business, freight forwarding, only to reinvent itself by creating new financial instruments like the traveler's check.
Which, essentially invented global financial trust. And critically, Amex used a deliberate, strategic, counterintuitive approach. They leveraged exclusivity, starting with that $1 higher fee than Diners Club, then the invitation-only Gold, Platinum, and Centurion cards, to build a premium, aspirational brand.
This brand allowed them to withstand competition and vitally justify higher fees. They survived massive regulatory and market challenges, including the humiliating corporate malice of the Safra scandal, the costly merchant uprising known as the Boston Tea Party, and the huge financial impact of the Costco exit. The key takeaway for the modern market is this. Amex thrives on its proprietary network model. Unlike Visa or MasterCard, which are networks that rely on third-party banks to issue the credit and underwrite the risk, Amex controls the entire process.
They are the issuer, the network, and the acquirer. That control is everything. It allows them to manage risk better, instantly recognize and reward high-spending, high-fee customers, and constantly justify that premium cost structure by investing heavily in a closed loop of lifestyle and business services.
Resi, TikTok, Cabbage, and the exclusive Centurion lounges.
Right. Their longevity demands radical transformation, but maintaining that meticulously curated Centurion brand identity is what allows them to charge a premium others cannot.
Now for the provocative final thought. Given Amex's long history of radical pivots, from freight to financial products, from the brokerage firm back to payments, and now heavily into digital services and lifestyle platforms like Resi and Talkit, we have to ask,
how long will the physical plastic or metal card remain the central symbol of the American Express brand? If their future is truly defined by digital services, automated small business banking, and seamless dining access via Talk and Resi,
then the card itself might become merely an authentication token.
It could. So what new form of access, currency, or integrated digital platform will define the next 175 years for American Express? The physical card might just become a footnote in their next great reinvention.
Something to mull over as you tap your way through the world. That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you next time.